Now picture this, my alarm goes off at 5 a.m., which is a great start, okay? But my alarm is in the wrong room. Basically, I put it there strategically because I want to get out of my warm, comfortable bed and go to the next room and make sure that I'm actually up so I don't hit the snooze button. But I hit the snooze button even though it's in a different room. So I hit the snooze button and I go back into my bedroom and I go into my nice, warm, cozy bed and I fell asleep for another 10 minutes and I hear my alarm clock again. I get up and I go to the other room and I hit snooze again. And I do this, and I'm not lying, I do this 9 times. So for 1.5 hours, I basically get up, go to the other room, hit the snooze button, go back, and basically fall back and go back to sleep. Now, here is basically what I did not realize. I was practicing, and now this is a few years back or many years back, 15 or something, where this actually really happened. But I was practicing breaking promises to myself before I actually got up and took a shower. The snooze button taught me basically that no leadership book actually can teach you, and that is if you break small promises, you actually also are on a very slippery slope to break big promises. Because before my feet even stayed on the floor, I had already told myself, just 10 more minutes. And I did this 9 times. I only wanted to sleep 10 more minutes. And every single time I actually lied to myself because I did not get up 10 minutes later. The alarm was my commitment and snooze was my escape. And I did not even really see it. Now, you might think that's just a funny kind of morning story, but here is what it actually is. I was training myself to treat my promises as suggestions. And that is a big problem. Promises to yourself or to anybody else cannot be suggestions. They need to be commitments. So you basically have to realize that as a business owner, small promises predict also how we treat big ones. When you tell your team, I will review this by Friday, and then Friday comes and so many busy things happen because you're just so important. I'm so important. So we don't even bother to tell our team basically that we can't deliver it on Friday. We hit the snooze button. And when you promise a client, basically we will deliver this by the end of the month, and the end of the month comes and you push it a week basically further because the client already has paid. So what's the big deal? You hit the snooze button again. When you tell yourself, this quarter I will finally get out of operations. But 3 months later, you still basically are answering every customer email, snooze, snooze, snooze. The problem is not that you mean basically to break these promises. The problem is you have trained yourself not to take your own word seriously. And your team notices. Even if they don't say anything because they're afraid. Your clients notice, your family notices, not because they are keeping score, but because trust is built in tiny moments, not in the big, grand declarations. They are basically done in the small moments. So that's why I have this snooze protocol that really can be helpful. It's really simple. It has basically 3 rules to it. So rule number 1 is only promise what you can keep, and you have to be 95% sure that you will actually keep that promise. Only promise what you can keep. Sometimes we actually promise something that where we already know we will not be able to keep this, and it's really frustrating, but we basically have not learned to say no, or we are afraid to say no. And so basically the rule is if you have to be 95% sure that you are actually keeping this promise, that your word is actually true. And of course, there are always times where you can't keep it and something changes, but you have to be 95% true. Because the reality is that if you think it's 95%, most probably it's only 80% of the time where you will actually keep your promise or you keep your word. So basically what you do, and this is where rule number 2 comes in, because if 80% of the time you keep your promises, there are 20% of the time where you don't. And that's where you have to realize you have to start communicating before the deadline that you actually can't keep that promise, so that you are a man or a woman of your word. Okay? It will be a Monday, basically. And here is why. And you basically explain, because things change. You are the boss of your own priorities, but you have to communicate them. You cannot just change and think that people are just basically happy to adjust, even if it's your own team, if you basically don't communicate with them. So the first rule is 95% to be sure. Now, if you, let's say, are 70% sure that you can get it done by Thursday, say that you will get it done by Friday, because in Friday you are 95% sure. Then, if something happens unexpected, that is unexpected in your calendar or in your life, basically, or you reprioritize, you basically let them know, because you're a man or a woman of your word. And then rule number 3 is basically track your word like revenue. You track your revenue in your business, but make sure that you have a system. Sometimes it's just an easy system that you need to write down what are the promises, what are the commitments, what are the things you actually said you would do. Often we are not we don't mean it in a mean way to when things slip by, but it's because we don't have a system that actually makes sure that the things we communicate and the things we commit to actually are happening. And that's why you basically want to make sure that you have something where you track all the commitments and all the promises that you have made to other people, so that you basically then kind of know you will follow through. And that basically is the Snooze protocol, and it will help you that small promises actually are making are kept, so that people know you are a man or a woman of your word. Now, when you stop hitting snooze on these things, basically something will change. Your team will realize it, clients will realize it, yourself will get a new, different identity. Somebody that when he says or she says, I will do it, to yourself or to others, you basically are doing it. And this becomes a new identity and a new superpower, so to speak, in your life. So this is what I want you to do. Take 10 minutes. Write down every open promise you have right now, to your team, to your clients, to your family, to yourself. Write them down and ask yourself, are you going to hit snooze? Where you planning? And nobody's looking at the list, but be honest. Are you snoozing these commitments? Then you either have to tell them, I can't keep this promise, or you're not making this promise to yourself anymore. Or number 2, you let them know that the deadline has shifted and basically you are doing this later, and at a later point in a later timeline. Or you rearrange your calendar that you actually can keep that commitment, and you basically are keeping that promise, and you are starting with the most important promises you either made to yourself, to your team, or to your clients. Now, the snooze button feels harmless in the moment. But 90 minutes later, you have basically lost something you cannot get back. And that is not time, that is really trust. And the thing about trust is you do not just lose it in one dramatic moment. Now, you can if you do some stupid stuff, but you often lose it in kind of 9-minute snooze kind of activities at a time that compound over time. Now, here's the truth. I still use the snooze button. Okay, I still use the snooze button. I have a bracelet that actually wakes me up, that vibrates, because I have small kids, and I guess, and I don't want that my wife gets up as well. So it vibrates, and I can hit it once, and it snoozes for 2 minutes. For only 2 minutes, and then basically it vibrates again, and I get up. Now, in this case, I know the night before, this is my system. So I still love the snooze button. Some people will tell you shouldn't use the snooze button at all. I love these 2 minutes. I'm looking forward to these 2 minutes. And then I actually get up. But this it has changed from something that I know I'm going to do after 2 minutes. Basically, I keep that promise. And the snooze button is not basically a lie to myself, because that's part of my system. but it is basically my strategy of getting up. So I'm not saying no to the snooze button in life in general, unless basically it's a promise that you are not keeping to yourself or to your team. So think through on basically what are the promises and the commitments you are making, and how well are you actually in following through. Follow the snooze protocol, and then I will see you in the next video. If you want more videos on how to build and design a self-managing business, just follow along, and I'll see you in the next video.